Can an enlightened person commit sexual misconduct? Or put another way, if a person commits sexual misconduct, is that an automatic disqualifier of them from the realm of enlightenment or good teacher or legitimate lineage holder? I get this question all the time. It's a question I'll be asking myself for the rest of my life, and it's a question someone recently emailed me, and I want to read this very thoughtful email to you, and then I want to open up this question without coming to any definitive answers. Are you ready? Thank you. Hey, mate. Just finished your first book, Zen Confidential, Confessions of a Wayward Monk. I think he was talking about my second book, Single White Monk, Tales of Death, Sex, and Bad Failure. Really good and heavy. Shame about Roshi, though. I am curious as to why you would share his works after all the suffering he caused and the big stain he left on Zen in the West. I understand he may have been awakened, but I feel there should be more of a dissection into how an awakened person could do this. My Zen master says I have to see a therapist while I learn Zen, as he warns that Zen alone is dangerous. It would be interesting to study your teacher's life and learn about the parts in him that felt they needed to sexually abuse people? ? His parts, inner child and shadow, were obviously unintegrated and should be elucidated before sharing his work, as too many teachers sexually abuse students, and I am over them giving the tradition such a bad name. Just my opinion. Love ya, man. This email, which is actually a message on my YouTube channel, under one of the videos, it wasn't an email, is a lot heavier than I remembered. So I need to go contemplate this for a bit. Excuse me. So to the very first question, why would I share my teacher's works? I share my teacher's works. Nope, I'm not going to say that. Fuck that, because that's not true. To address the first, probably maybe the most important question in this message, why would I share my teacher's works after all of the suffering that he caused? Okay. I share my teacher's works because I don't think that the truth behind those works belongs to him. There was truth in his teachings. There was truth for me. There was truth in our interactions, private and public and otherwise. And I can't deny that truth. I can't deny the wisdom that I experienced in his presence and that he helped to engender or manifest in me. I can't deny it. I can read all the accounts online and believe every one of them. And they're heartbreaking for me. They're heartbreaking. I would never in a trillion years, in godzillion kalpas, refute a single one of the stories anyone ever gave about my teacher. That's not my place. In the end, I only ever have my own experience and my own story with him. And in the heart of my countless, innumerable dark nights of the soul on this topic, I was counseled by a female Japanese American Roshi / Zen master in a slightly different tradition than mine. She served as a precious, precious jewel, a beacon of light during this dark, dark time. And her teacher was a very famous Japanese Zen master who was technically, I believe, allegedly, a pedophile, in that he had a sexual relationship with an underage woman, girl. I mean, I think she was 15 or 16. She was the daughter of one of his students. It's a messy tradition, okay? He also had improper relationships with other women in his community, okay? Now, one of his students was this Japanese American female Zen Roshi who counseled me and helped me and really helped our community. And she told me one day, she said, you know what? Don't, put the noise out of your head. Even put your feelings out of your head. You know what your experience was with your teacher, just like I know what my experience was with my teacher. She told me. And so, in answer to the question as to why I share his teachings, I know what my experience was. My experience was there is a kernel of wisdom in these teachings. And if I can share these teachings without the baggage that they were given to me and to many of my community in, I figure that's about the best thing that any of us can do with this, my teacher's very checkered legacy. When I met my teacher, I was no saint. I had had many girlfriends. I remember one of them, I was lying in bed with her, and I remember thinking, my heart is totally closed off. I've been living in Hollywood for 10 years now. I haven't met anyone I really love. I felt like a block of ice. I felt trapped inside myself. I felt like I couldn't love. It was an ugly feeling.Maybe somebody out there is watching this. I know there is. I can't have been alone in this type of feeling. I felt like a fake human being. Like I couldn't manifest genuine affection, genuine, authentic, real feelings and emotions. I was all irony and intellect and reflection and deep self-consciousness. It was like this horrible combination of hyper self-consciousness and like that ugly, snarky irony. And between these two ogre guardians behind them, like my heart was walled off from the world. It was into this life that my teacher came, okay? Sasaki Roshi. And I knew that he had a dark side. I was told. And it bothered the hell out of me, especially as a moralistic ex-Catholic. You never get that Catholicism out of your blood. It's there, always, It's like turmeric. It stains everything, right? The stench of garlic. It gets in everything, Catholicism is like that. Thank God on some level, because it gives me moral orientation. So I started working with this teacher. I moved to the monastery and I started working with him. And salient in those first few weeks and months was the warmth that he showed me. And it's a warmth that I cannot describe. I've heard another nun call it an example of unconditional love. that's what she experienced. She did not have any kind of sexual misconduct from him. She just experienced this unconditional love. That was what I experienced, was this unconditional love. That was the experience. Was he faking it? Was he making it up? Was he putting it on? Is a guy who can commit something that one student will call sexual misconduct, can that guy not manifest what I experienced as unconditional love? Ask yourself that question. I will tell you this. I went on to become the head monk. I saw many different sides to my teacher. And I learned that he was a fucking dangerous dude in some ways. And if I let a little string hang out from the sweater of my psyche, he was gonna pull it and unravel that whole sweater. So for example, I was sort of involved for a while with a Zen nun. Long story, I'll probably write about it in depth at one point. Have wrote about it in here in Single White Monk. So, and my teacher sensed this or knew it, and I wasn't being upfront or honest about this relationship with anyone. Stain on me. Anyways, I learned from it. So, my teacher brought another monk into the room at one point, and he was trying to pit us against each other because this other monk had a crush on this woman. And this woman and I decided we were going to keep our relationship completely secret from everyone, including Roshi, because that was my experience. Don't get him involved in your personal life. Just don't, because he'll wreak havoc, right? He was dangerous in that way. Dangerous and complex, but also, I have to say, putrid in many cases. Just putrid behavior. And I don't ultimately know what to make of it. My friend has told me, yeah, Roshi groped me, and it ultimately made me leave the community. And her take was, I had a heroin addict for a boyfriend, and I saw that same look of addiction in Roshi's eyes. That's what she told me. And another friend of mine, a Zen priest who studied with my Roshi, said to me, he said, I think about it like we were the children of an alcoholic. We were in this broken family. We're the children of this alcoholic, So he looks at it from the addiction perspective, right? This guy was addicted to this bad behavior of sexual misconduct, grabbing women. I don't know the specifics. This is not the place to go into the specifics, but the stories are out there, that's one interpretation. It was an addiction, Another interpretation is the one that is implied in this message this guy put on my YouTube, which is that an enlightened person, he was a fake, he was a fraud, and that's it. And honestly, that is generally how I feel when I read about sexual misconduct in other Zen communities. I'm like, F that teacher, F that person. They're gross. They're frauds. Here's the deal, people. And here's the point of this video. I can't say that in this case because of my own personal experience with this teacher. When I spent the last 6-7 years of his life basically seeing him every day in a specific, intimate, personal context because I was taking care of him physically, and I was taking care of his main training monastery. So I was like the go-between between him and the world, and I was helping take care of his body. And the guy, I had an experience with him, and I look forward to the day when I meet a more enlightened person. I look forward to the day when I meet a wiser person. I look forward to the day when I meet a more human being. I look forward to that day, right? So what that means is I can't turn my back on him. I can come and I can give an open talk like this where I hold his legacy up and I say, Tui, you know? And I can also keep giving lectures and talks and sharing personal experiences of what a positive effect he was on my life. He helped me through that cold heart, that dead, ironic, self-conscious hell that I was in. I'll never be in that space again. He hugged me. He touched me a lot, not sexually, but he was intimate with me. And it wasn't just hugging an old man. We were doing it in koan practice, and he was teaching me Zen. He was saying, when you hug me, and he would do that hug all the way. And there was nothing gross or weird or creepy about it. It was vulnerable. And he wasn't vulnerable. It was open. It was connection. He was teaching me how to connect, which is something I didn't know how to do. That's my interpretation of what was going on there. Okay? He would hug me. One. And then he would let go. Two. You know? And he was teaching me the crux of his teachings, which is that you have oneness in whatever activity you're doing with whatever you are in relationship with at that moment. Right now I'm in relationship with you, and I'm not thinking. I'm one with you. I'm got an energy at my back that is propelling me into this camera, and we are one. And then I'm going to finish this video, and I'll step back, and then we're two. As I start to think about it, as I start to reflect, that's the self manifesting. And he taught over and over and over, hey buddy, just give yourself completely and sincerely. And he would tell me, this Zen sucks, basically, he would say. It's hard. You know, and he broke me, and that place broke me. I mean, it fucking broke me over and over. Every training season, it broke me. And every time I was more open and stronger. And until his scandal, which was the end of my Zen career. And that broke me completely. And now I can't be crushed or put down or anything. I mean, I don't know what to say. Like it's messy and pure at the same time. There's no going back for me. There's no ever idolizing my teacher. There's no putting him on a pedestal. So here's my point. I don't know if an enlightened person can commit sexual misconduct. Like, I've been in this business for a long time, and it seems to me there are a lot of really great teachers in the Zen, Tibetan, Buddhist tradition who have come to the West and committed sexual misconduct, at a minimum. I mean, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche from the Shambhala lineage was a complete lunatic. Google him, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. And yet, he saved my life through his books. When I first started studying Buddhism, he saved my life. And I still go back to Trungpa's books, like Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism. The wisdom is undeniable, okay? Taizen Maizumi Roshi produced a flowering of beautiful Zen teachers, from Wendy Egyoku Nakao to Roshi Bernie Glassman. These are A-list American Zen Roshis, spawned spiritually from a teacher who committed sexual misconduct. So I think ultimately I used to be naive. And I used to cry and cry and cry in my beer over the fact that my teacher and so many other teachers committed sexual misconduct, you know? And then one day I had to ask myself, didn't on some level you want to go to this teacher because something about him spoke to you? And maybe, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you know, I'm looking at my girlfriend's guitar right now, and I'm thinking of a video a friend of mine made recently about sexual misconduct in Buddhism. And I'm thinking about how this guy said he likes Ted Nugent. He thinks Ted Nugent is one of the greatest guitarists to ever pick up the instrument. Better even than Jimi Hendrix, or at least on par with Jimi Hendrix. And he said, I hate Ted Nugent's political opinions. He said, Ted Nugent is a right-wing nut job. He said, but the music sings through him, you know? It just comes through him. And I was recently listening to Wang Dang Sweet Poontang, and I have to say, Ted Nugent can make that axe scream with Talia the Muse, right? I mean, the Nuge has it. And yet the Nuge is a freaking lunatic politically, arguably. So my friend's point in this video was, I don't care what a person's political views are. I like the sound of the music. And his point was, weirdly, the music sometimes sings through people. And his point was, sometimes the Dharma comes through people, okay? And they manifest beautiful teachings, but the instrument is flawed. The person is flawed. And he said, I mean, I'm not that interested in the flaws of the person. I prefer to listen to the music, to the Dharma. I tend to be a little bit different. I tend to get a little bit more hung up on the flaws of, say, an artist. Like Woody Allen, for example. He used to be one of my favorite filmmakers and writers. And now it's just due to all the allegations about him, I just can't deal with him. And my heart continues to be somewhat divided over my own teacher. So you can see from the spastic video that I've made. Every once in a while I have to do this video because someone will call me on it. They'll say, you're throwing your teacher's teachings out there like a little boy singing his daddy's praises, but your daddy was a problem. And so then I feel the need to speak to that. But in closing, like, some of the lessons I've learned from having a flawed teacher, okay? Like the main lesson is that in the end, they're like us, no matter how, I mean, I and others in my community experienced things with my teacher that are the essence of what capital S spirituality means. I mean, the stuff that atheists go, oh, come on, that's complete bogus, you know? I'll just leave it at that. We've had these experiences, and we had them with and through our interactions with our teacher. And so when one has those experiences with someone, one tends to put that teacher up on a pedestal. But my teacher got knocked off his pedestal. And yet I can't deny that I had these profound experiences, and I can't deny that that maybe I was a little bit of a sucker, and that you know, he was a bit of a fraud. Maybe he was a bit of a beast. That's just the situation. And ultimately what I had to do was just hold both sides of that duality, that binary in my heart, and move forward. And it makes me a lot more compassionate now towards ordinary people, because I realize you're no different than my teacher. I, as an ordinary man, am no different than my teacher. The Dharma came through him. It sang through him. And it sings through me in certain moments. And it sings through the homeless guy on the street. And it sings through some creepy, weird idiot who's on trial for some horrific crime. It sings through all of us. If it can sing and manifest through my teacher, who is a flawed vehicle, then it can sing and manifest through all of us. So I no longer put Zen Roshis on a pedestal. I put no one on a pedestal. And I raise up a little bit higher all the schmucks, losers, and ordinary folks whom I used to kind of look down on when I was my big, cool Zen monk in my big, cool robes with my big, cool Zen teacher. Not anymore, man. So that's really ultimately how I've it's just happened, that it has happened, how I've turned the shit legacy that my teacher left us with into a kind of tiny little personal gold that I occasionally break out and try and share with you here on this channel, for better or worse, in my own flawed way. In a nutshell, you have to stand on your own 2 feet. You take the teachings, and if it becomes clear to you that the vessel of the teachings is flawed, then you only have your own experience. And if you can speak words that are true to your own experience, then those are the teachings. And if those words that you teach that are true to your experience are your teacher's words, your flawed teacher's words, you can use those words as your own. And the lineage continues, purged of the bullshit that your teacher manifested in his lifetime. That's my take. This is a difficult topic. It always hurts people and aggravates people, annoys people, and enrages people when I talk about it. But if I don't talk about it, I'm not doing justice. I'm not being true to the complicated, complex legacy that my teacher left behind, and to the people who, were victimized, by my teacher and our community, and those of us who, were, through our participation in the community, complicit, frankly. So there you have it. If you want to support this channel, Zen Confidential, you can do so here at patreon.com/Shozan Jack Hobner. You can also go to the PayPal link in the video description and support me with a 1-time or 2-time donation there. I appreciate your support also through hitting the like and hitting the subscribe and hitting the notifications, which helps this channel to grow and flourish like spores from a mushroom in a forest of rotting logs, sprouting up in people's timelines. Thank you for your question. I forget the name of the guy who sent me this question. It's a beautiful, sincere question that keeps me on my toes, gets me thinking, humbles me, and helps carry my practice forward in the truest, cleanest, simplest way possible. Until next time, adios, friends.